got us opened up to the Strong's Concordance, which is going to give us the meaning behind the term evil, where God is saying that he has created evil in Isaiah chapter 45, verse 7. And then basically I translated that term to you as the fallen prince of this world underneath one of his titles connected to the evil eye. And then we see that as further connected in modern times, or even being synonymous with the term Ra, or Re, which is then a term for an ancient pharaoh in Egypt, which interestingly enough can connect us now to Osiris Orion, and then further connect us to a term in the Bible that is very mysterious or enigmatic, and that is the term Rahab. And then Rahab is this Ra, but also then now this Rahab translates as a dragon, which then would translate in connection to typhoon, which then is just another symbolism of that Rahab, which is in the symbolism now that is connected to the dragon in Revelation, that then describes the symbolism of Satan, or at least the devil, that adversary. And anybody that has been following my videos knows and understands that Lucifer is a singular persona, as is Satan and the devil. Who we're speaking of in question here would be the devil. That'd be the fallen prince of this world, under many titles, but at least the most recognizable name that would fulfill this symbolism with the serpent would be Enki. And then you see that his chief symbol is a serpent winding up a rod or a staff, which is now connected to the term caduceus. So you even see that the Eye of Re is now connected to serpent wisdom, and in the wisdom from which it derives is the fallen prince Enki. So what I want you to see here are the Freemasonic symbols on the Great Seal of the reverse of the single dollar bill. And then what you have now is a pyramid that is not completed. And then we know that the capstone is in semblance for their god, otherwise known to most people as a semblance for Ra or Re, that we now see being correctly translated in Isaiah as being evil, as that dark prince, which then we can connect to Luke chapter 11, verse 33 through, where Jesus Christ effectively describes the same singular eye in reference to darkness, which then fulfills as that dark prince. So opposite the symbolism here that is Freemasonic of the Great Seal, which is showing you who they're hoping to bring in as the Lord of the earth, and then of course to some of them how they think they're going to become a god or Lord of the earth themselves. But then now as we see the other portion of the seal, it shows us an eagle, and then above the eagle's head is the star tetrahedron connected to the seal. But as we see, another connection of the seal is the semblance of the moon, which now fulfills Ezekiel 17 and then Zechariah 5 in the titlement of Shinar, which means shining. It's a capital of Babylon. Now we see as above, so too below. Notice that this eagle connecting to Ezekiel 17 is now holding the branch in one hand, which reflects a people being lifted up, and then in the opposite talons is of course the arrows, which we know an ancient term for aerolite meteor is how they're to be destroyed. And then now you can see that it would be no secret that these are the ambitions, at least by their inspiration of the biblical scriptures, for the very same thing that they're supposed to do in connection to some sort of population control. It's being played out against the backdrop of their biblical ambitions. So now let's take a look here of a maiden. This is a Freemasonic chart, and I want you to see that the maiden is now holding a branch in her hand. It's going to be the very same branch that the eagle is carrying here. But this is shown to you here as a positive thing, and then in most versions of the translation to people, it's shown as a positive thing as well. But the broken pillar is the key. She's weeping, and then now this becomes the weeping widow, or the weeping willow, which is now connected to the maidens that are weeping for Tammuz, aka Osiris Orion, that connection of the descendancy that fulfills the prince nobility, at least in the form of man. That now we see Enki as the spiritual prince of that inspiration of that descendancy of pride, is now hoping to use that genetics sometime in the future to fulfill himself in physical form. And that's exactly what Jesus Christ did reveal. And then he even made such statements that would intimate that Jesus did foresee this coming to pass, that the fallen prince did enter into physical form. And he said something that was in effect like this: wherever the carcass is, therefore the eagles will be gathered, or there will the eagles be gathered. And then now let's connect this to the eagles, and then we now see it used in a semblance of the temptation of the description where Jesus Christ says, if they tell you that I'm in a secret place, go not. And then that's in reference to Luke 11 that describes that candle being taken to a secret place. And then Jesus is challenging it. He's like, well, in reality, men light candles to light up the darkness so that everybody can see. You don't put it under a bushel, or you don't put it in a secret place. If you really got the truth, why are you afraid to let everybody see it? And then he's challenging that notion, and it also supplies the notion that he will light a candle that will be fulfilled on a candlestick. Therefore, everybody will be able to see this light. And then, of course, that's the juxtaposition of course, this type of duality within the manifest of the prophecy fulfillment. It fulfills within two lines the original spiritual intent that was fulfilled against the backdrop of the calamity of the material mistranslation thereof. But yet you still have those that materially mistranslate that seek to fulfill within that material mistranslation. And then now Jesus Christ has shown everybody within the body the correct way to translate it by simply declaring that within this body there should be no part dark. And then of course we know that within the symbolism here of this God, there is one part dark and there is one part light. And then I would like to imagine, or at least get you to imagine, the black and white checkerboard of the Freemasonic organization. Now that's a lot of things to take in. But if you read Ezekiel 17, you will see the fulfillment of this maiden being lifted up. There's a man with a sickle in his hand, as in respect to the harvest. There is the hourglass, which of course is semblance for Osiris Orion. And then now you see that ladder or that stairway, even semblance of genetics, being lifted up. But if everybody knows the biblical verses that are connected, you will see that they are lifted up to destruction. And then this is, of course, that wretchedness that we see in connection to Ra or Re, because this is the inspiration now for that great supper, which then is clarified as a sacrifice, a blood sacrifice. But then Jesus Christ clarifies that this true bride is not being lifted up in connection to burnt offerings or blood sacrifices, but then is even in connection to being saved from the folly of those things. And then that, of course, is where the confusion of the rapture comes in. So then you can see now the correct translation of Isaiah chapter 45, verse 7, where God clarifies that he creates this evil. Well, it's that evil eye, Re, in semblance of the ultimate inspirer of the descendancy that also hold the symbol, and that would be the fallen prince Enki, who is also lord of the sacred eye. And I hope that you can recognize that. So just to show you a little bit more here, this would be the connection with those two eyes, so to say. And then let me see if I can... Got about 50 seconds here. This is the two columns of Freemasonry, Jachin and Boaz. This Jachin column represents who's getting lifted up to this moon location. And then that's where you see right here the ladder coming from the same angle, being lifted up, of course, in semblance to that moon. But I want you to see that they're being lifted up in connection to being called goats. They're scapegoats, and that's where NASA, Hebrew term, in connection to lifting away sinners to destruction. And now you see the house of wisdom is in the semblance of the form of a goat, which is no accident, my friends. because I tell you that capstone is symbolizing Capricorn, and of course that is the Lord of the Corn who is seeking to crack the corn.